Time now for Hot Picks. Well, arguably there's been no hotter big-name technology company over the last couple of years than Nvidia, which is set to report its quarterly results. Our next guest is still very constructive on Nvidia and also has a few other tech names to consider for your portfolio. And Ivanna Delevska is founder and CEO of Spear Invest and one of our regular guests here on BNN Bloomberg and joins us now. Great to have you back with us. And let's start with Nvidia. Lots of buzz, lots of conversation around the AI chip darling ahead of its quarterly results. What is your general investment view on Nvidia at this point?
Oh, thanks for having me, John. I think that as we look into the next 3 years, there is going to be another investment wave coming in data centers, especially with this new Blackwell architecture. So we're still very positive, and I would say we're incrementally more positive as we've done channel checks in terms of the sizes of the orders of the Blackwell architecture. The key to understand is that Blackwell needs to go into entirely new data centers versus the prior architecture was going into existing data centers. So we're going to see a lot bigger investment compared to the prior cycle.
And is there anything investors have to think about after a stock has had the kind of run-up that NVIDIA's had already, when obviously there's a lot of growth still on the runway for the company, but people look at that unprecedented run and they wonder, well, just how far can NVIDIA go from here?
Oh, John, it's actually pretty simple, right? It's all about their earnings growth. If they can out-deliver versus consensus numbers, especially if they can go back to the sizable beats that they were reporting about a year ago, I think the stock can still work from here. So on a valuation basis, it's not really expensive. It's sitting right in the middle of the historical range. The key is going to be, can they deliver and beat on earnings over the next several years? And we think we can. The setup also on this particular earnings is favorable, as the stock pulled back a little bit, as there were several concerning reports. People were worried about whether AI is delivering returns. So it's actually the setup on the earnings itself is pretty favorable from that perspective.
Okay, this is our hot pick section, and you were kind enough to share a couple of investing ideas. So let's shift from Nvidia, but stay with the story of the data center boom. Astera Labs, ALAB, is one you're continuing to watch. How come?
So we love Astera Labs, is a top holding in our ETF. They are a networking play. So as I mentioned before, in this wave of investments, it's not going to be just chips going into existing infrastructure. We're going to have to build out entirely new networks and systems and data centers. So Astera Labs is a new entrant in this place. They're a relatively new company. They're coming up with significantly very interesting solutions on the retimer side, on the networking side. So they have almost 100% market share in that product. They're launching new products. So we think they're really well positioned to capture the next data center cycle.
Okay, and then staying with the AI theme, another company you're watching is Cloudflare. NET is the symbol, a platform for AI companies to build on, co-founded by a Canadian, I might add. But give us a sense on the Cloudflare story. What stands out to you?
Cloudflare is a very unique platform. It started as something completely different, but as they've been able to develop and build on top of their network, they're now offering top-tier cybersecurity solutions. And what we're even more excited about, a workers platform where AI companies can basically build on and use their compute power in a much more flexible way than they would in the traditional hyperscaler. So a lot of companies building AI tool these days, they prefer Cloudflare as their vendor, and that business has been growing pretty rapidly for the company.
And with both Cloudflare and with Astera as well, similar math as the NVIDIA story. If the profit picture continues to improve, that justifies continued gains for the equities?
Yeah, that's very true. So both Astera Labs and Cloudflare will screen very expensive if you look at it on a revenue multiple basis. But the key will be whether revenue can continue to grow. So in the example of Astera Labs, we think they can be doubling revenues from here. And with Cloudflare, we think they can grow significantly above where the consensus expects, which is like mid-20s.
All right, Ivanna, really great to get that.